Welcome, good people, to another episode of Choice Words. I'm your host, Jay Artist-Wright, and today we are going to have another conversation with real people about real choices, educational equity, and the future of education within this country. And I am so excited to have another bold leader in this space, Crystal Felix Clark from Atlanta, Georgia, who leads up a fantastic charter school in Georgia. Um, Excited to talk with you today, Crystal, and have our listeners hear just the wonderful work you've been doing at your school, the great students that you've had there, and just overall what the experience has been, specifically from the perspective of Latino families. You are Latina yourself, and you have a very large Latino population. And so I think it's really important for us to have those conversations about how this perspective on educational choice, whether it be charter, micro school, homeschool, what have you, is having on our Latino community. So thank you so much for joining us, Crystal. To start us off, Crystal, just tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into this space? All of those things.
Hi, well, thank you for having me. My name is Crystal Clark. I'm originally from Washington Heights, New York City, but I moved to Georgia about 13 years ago. And I found the school that I serve in inadvertently serving in another district where I was happy, and decided to go back into leadership because of the community that it was serving. I identify as Afro Latina. I'm Dominican and Puerto Rican, and my community is different from my background in terms of my culture. Even though I am Latina, we're very very different. Obviously, we're not a monolith, but here in our community, we serve more of families from like South America. Every now and again, we'll get a sprinkle from the Caribbean, but a lot of our families are from Mexico, from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, countries in South America. So it's been great in terms of the journey of serving them. It's been 10 years now. I love it here. They couldn't get rid of me, but I hope they don't try. And that's a little bit about how I got here. I've been in leadership for 18 years and in education for 23.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about that. And tell me again the name of your school.
Yes, Path Academy Charter School is the name of our school, and we're located in Brookhaven, Georgia. We serve the district of DeKalb and DeKalb County families, and they are our authorizer. So we're a locally authorized charter school.
So speak a little bit more, Crystal, to your school, the students that you serve. I know you mentioned the population that they come from. How many students are in your school?
So we're a small charter school and we're intentionally small. We're about well, not about, we have exactly 368 students, and that is our cap. So it's written into our charter. Um, Being small and intimate in terms of knowing every student's name and every family is really important to us. So we serve four grades. We start in fifth grade. So middle school at Path starts in fifth grade, and it ends in eighth grade. And for each grade, we have four classes. And that is the way it has been for 23 years. That's kind of our secret sauce. We keep it small. Our teachers specialize in their content. So typically in elementary schools, you have to teach all of the contents and it's in one classroom. It's not exactly the same in traditional schools. But one thing we do differently in fifth grade, starting in fifth grade at Path, is that each teacher specializes in their content. And so that's where they get certified, that's where their studies are, and that's where their curriculum comes from. One of our autonomies is curriculum flexibility. So they write their own curriculum. So those are some of the things that make us different.
Yeah, no, that is powerful, and that's great because I think that is one of the unique experiences about learning is when you have that autonomy that we see specifically in charter schools to develop your curriculum to fit the child and the individual student. You definitely have more success. That's amazing. So from your vantage point as a charter school leader, how is education showing up for Latino families?
Okay, so I realized I didn't answer your original question. Forgive me for that. Let me talk to you a little bit about the community we serve. So we are at anywhere between 80 to 85% Latino families, and they are self-identified through their school survey. So that is how they identify when they register for our schools. But we don't only serve Latino families. Our charter is written specifically for immigrant and refugee families. So we have a vibrant community of Ethiopian families and Eritrean families that we serve and we love here. We also serve African American and Black students in our school, and biracial and bicultural students in our school, which is really interesting to see and experience. So we have some Black and Latino families that show up during cultural, nights, and we don't know what kind of food we're going to experience. And I mention food because it's oftentimes overlooked, and when it overlooked, that is the cornerstone of how we do community at this school. It all centers around food, and it all gives us like the foundation of connecting with each other and saying, oh, that's what that's called in your country, this is how we cook it, how do you cook it, and so on and so forth. So we serve immigrant and refugee families along the Buford Highway area, Doraville, and Shamley. But our school is open to all DeKalb families, and it is a blind lottery. We do not cherry pick or handpick our children. It is literally an old school rolling lottery where we just pick the names out and read them. And we do that live every year around February, March. And it's a big deal. Like people
Yeah.
show up, we stream it, we have to record it for documenting purposes, and then we
Yeah.
create a wait list.
I
So
was just
that's,
about to ask you, with only 360 something seats, how big is your wait list to get into your school?
well, I'm proud to say that our wait list is bigger than our school. At peak, it's 400 plus.
Mhm.
And that's why we're looking very seriously at expansion. We actually just kicked off, Jay, our strategic planning process last week.
Mhm.
And we released a community survey to ask our community, which way do we grow? Do we
That's
grow into a
perfect.
high school or into an elementary school? And
Yeah.
the buzz is all over the place. We're
Yeah.
already at 50% completion for our entire school in 2 days of this
Wow.
family survey. So they're like, are you serious? Like, is this possible? How are we going to do this? This is exciting. We're also moving into a bigger building to accommodate that.
Mhm.
So, it's good. It's challenging, but it's good stuff, especially when the community is in support of it.
That's fantastic, and listen, those are good problems to have, right? It's unfortunate, and this is one of the setbacks specifically for charter school leaders is that you do have a lottery and that you cannot bring all of the children into the fold. But in a case like yours, this is why it's so important to promote expansion and growth,
Yeah.
because with expansion and growth, there's actually more opportunities for more families. And what I really love about the work that you do, Crystal, and you've shown it in so many ways, and I'll speak in a minute about my first experience with meeting you, but you go directly to the source. It is all about what families want, how families are showing up. You make families a core part of the educational experience, not only for the student, but for their guardians and their parents and, their siblings, what have you. So that is great. And that's one of the biggest pieces of this conversation that I want people to hear, because often in the charter school lane of work, it is often seen from a different lens. We don't see people of color, we don't see Latinas as much as we should, being front facing, leading up such great work, and having longevity in this work for several reasons. We don't talk enough about schools where culturally affirming curriculum are being taught, right? So, speaking about the fact that your teachers can build their curriculum based off of customizing what students need is a huge win and advantage that is also so important when we talk about choice. So I'm enjoying this conversation and I want to dig a little bit deeper with you if you don't mind. But before we do that, I just have to share that. So I met Miss Crystal in Georgia. What this was last year, I believe, last year in February, we decided to have a huge advocacy day. And when I say huge, it was huge. We had over 1,000 students, families, and teachers show up to the Georgia State Capitol to advocate on behalf of equity and funding, specifically for our charter schools who do not get their fair share. And I believe you bought all 360 of your kids.
We did,
And
yeah.
yeah, and we have a great photo we've actually highlighted on our website. of all of your students sitting on the state capitol stairs, which I love because it really shows the diversity of your school. And you're right, it was like Ethiopian, Eritrean, El Salvadorian, like everybody was there. I also love what you said about being centered around food. I do feel like food and music in our communities are often not seen as value as much as we value them. Like, I mean, when I show up to a function and it doesn't have music and food together, I'm like, something's missing. Um, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's real, right? So it's like that is a value proposition that we should speak of more and really get people who don't know our communities to understand the value that that brings to this work. So you got to talk a little bit more about that and the circles that you can. Let me ask you this next question though. Um, what do you hear most often from Latino parents about what they want for their children in the education system?
That's a good question, Jay. When I talk to my families, and we talk in all different types of spaces, at drop off, at the car, on the car rider line, via text. Our school, one of the things, again, it's the small things. If there's anything I could impart to anyone that wants to do work that's community centered, it's about small decisions that honor what your community needs and wants. Our school has a phone. We have an iPhone. I mean, I guess you could do it with an Android. Sorry, I don't mean to promote any one thing. But we have an iPhone, and our parents can text us during the day. That phone has Facebook on it. It has all of our social media handles. We go live from it. It's a fun phone. Sometimes when stuff is happening, the kids will text the school path cell. Everyone has it. And it's just a central piece of how we communicate with our families. And sometimes we can have a whole conversation via text. But when we talk, to answer your question, what they want, and this speaks really deeply to why this community, I love it so much. When you have an immigrant background, I'm the daughter of immigrants. My mom is Puerto Rican. It's complicated. But if you want to learn more about that experience, go see Bad Bunny in San Juan. I have residency. If you want a master class on community organization, there you have it.
Really?
Um,
From Bad Bunny? That's funny.
it's the truth. I mean, it's genius, and he's single handedly reviving our island and our culture, and it's beautiful. I digress. They It's like immigrant families pay homage and tribute to the opportunity given to them through their children. And the
Mm,
pathway to that is education.
yep.
Because for so many of our families, that right, that fundamental right, was taken from them, either directly or indirectly. I'll give you my parents' short stories as an example, but there's so many similarities in the stories I hear from our families here. My mother's Puerto Rican. My grandparents came from San Germán and San Lorenzo on the island of Puerto Rico. And they came here to America because when the US came to Puerto Rico, a lot of our natural resources and ability to sustain ourselves became very complicated, is the
Mhm.
simple way of saying that. So
Yeah.
it was hard to keep your family afloat. So my grandparents actually met in New York, where I'm from, and they moved to Grant Houses, which is a project in Harlem. And my mother grew up there with Puerto Rican, Black, Chinese, all different types of families in that housing complex. And then she learned English in school. But my grandparents didn't go to school in Puerto Rico, particularly my grandfather. I don't know that much about my grandmother's educational experience. There were more social, emotional aspects that impacted her. But again, their school experience was here in America. And then there's my dad. My dad was born near Moca in the Dominican Republic, which is like our countryside in DR is in the mountains. And our city is like on the coast, which is Santo Domingo. So my dad was born in Moca, moved to Santo Domingo, and his parents came to New York City to start a business for seed funding to start a business back home. So it's a completely different island, completely different economic circumstances, but they
Right.
came to America through Ellis Island, and so did my Puerto Rican grandparents to build a business, to build seed money for a pharmacy that they then went back and started in the Dominican Republic. But my father wasn't able to go to school until he came to America at 11 years old. So all that time, my dad was also working on the islands while he was waiting for his parents to come back for him and his siblings. So his education, and my father and my mother went on to become teachers, get a bachelor's degree, and get their master's and certifications in education, both of them, through
That's great.
that process. Um, and I only have one grandparent that's still alive. She still comes and visits, and is grateful to this country. And then my father eventually became a citizen through the pathways that they had in the 90s. I remember helping him study for his citizenship test. But my point in saying that is, when I talk to parents about what they want their children to be safe, they want
Mhm.
their children to get a really good education, and they want their children to have good and fair opportunities as a result of that education. It's that
Mhm.
simple.
Yep.
The other stuff that happens here in our school at Path is centered around, how do you teach curriculum that students will remember and honor?
Mm.
And I don't just talk the talk. My first child graduated from here and just started university last week. That was
Oh,
hard.
congratulations.
Thank you. That's another podcast. That was really hard. Um, so he graduated and was accepted to university and started. My child that was 1 year old when I started here came in this recent class, just started the week
Wow.
before he left here at the school. So I really believe in our instructional program. And when my son wrote his college essay, he wrote about his experiences here. The
Mhm.
essay asked him to identify what's the ideal teaching environment. And he highlighted our sixth grade ELA teacher who is still here and who is now
Mhm.
the ELA chair and was our teacher of the year like 2 years ago, Mr. Bria Parker. And he described her classroom like he was still in it. And he said it was the first place he felt seen. And it was the first place he felt like the way he learned wasn't an inconvenience to the teacher in the room.
Mhm. Can you speak more to that? Like what specifically did he feel, see in that classroom?
He said the way he described it was that it felt like home. And Jabria's classroom very much, I'm sorry, Miss Parker's classroom very much feels like home. She has rugs, plants, incense, diffusers. She uses music as a medium. And he described some of those things. But what he spoke to was, she was the first teacher that, in his major is creative writing, that made
Okay.
him want to write.
Yes.
And it was
Yeah,
through
because
her.
remember, like this is the ELL teacher, right? So this wasn't like, yeah,
He
this, yeah,
started as
exactly.
an ELL teacher and then she became an ELA teacher. So she's, a lot of our teachers are dual certified and she's one of them. But it was her line of questioning, and it wasn't out of a book. It
Hmm.
was, tell me your story. I want to know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And now he is, I remember she came to me because, of course, I shared his essay, because I'm that mom. But I
You
was
have
like, I
to.
just want to let you guys know this is Mateo's college essay. And she was in tears. She couldn't believe he wrote about her. And I'm like, why wouldn't he write about you? You're
Yeah.
amazing, you know?
Man, I want to go to your school. This is why doing this podcast and having guests like you is so important to me because I have the opportunity to see this because I go visit schools and I see around the country this works, and also being on the policy side, I always have to fight why it works, right?
Yeah,
And so to hear these stories is so important because it is really naming so much of what it means to teach a child and what it means to see a child because you have to see a child before you can teach them.
yeah,
And unfortunately, when we look at our traditional system over the course of hundreds of years now, it has been a homogenized system that doesn't really allow for that level of creativity, that level of thinking, that level of value that we are seeing more so now more than ever, especially in our charter school space. It's actually one of the reasons why we've seen the homeschool space start to grow because exactly what you just said, Mateo is like, I want this feels like home. When I go to school, it feels like home.
Yeah.
And it's sad. I mean, right now we just experienced another school shooting, which is starting to become a norm. And safety is not only the safety of my child's well-being, but safety of my child's culture. And again, also feeling like they've been seen. We did a poll last year. It was a poll about how swing state voters viewed education. And one of the
Mhm.
key points that came out is for Black and Latino families specifically, they want their children to be seen. And so you are epitomizing that with your school. And the success of that is amazing with your waiting list. And obviously, you've been around for 23 years. It's just, I just commend you so much. The other thing, the fact that you have children that went to your school, you know it's going to be successful, right? Because otherwise, you wouldn't invest your own children into these schools.
Yeah.
And that is another argument that we often try to share, specifically with lawmakers, is that when you look at specifically charter school leaders of color, um, 9 times out of 10, they are invested in the school because they themselves went to the school or they have family that were at the school. And that's a different type of investment than when you just come in and have this vision for what this area looks like, because you are dedicated and committed to making sure that it does well personally and professionally. And that is a key cornerstone. So I commend you on that.
Thank you. I don't know if I mentioned this, Jay, but we also have now 5 teachers that are alumni of our school who have gone
Yeah.
on, gotten their degree, done their Teach for America hours. Thank you, Teach for America, for sponsoring our kids. We appreciate you. And then they're like, okay, I'm moving back to Georgia and going back to my school. And we
Mhm.
just hired another one. We just hired our 5th person this week. That's
I
pretty.
really feel like that's a secret sauce that I'm hoping we see elevated a little bit more. One of our core principles is teacher diversity, and it speaks to that because it is a multi-generational look at how our communities view education, because they will learn and then they feel like they need to come back and pay homage to what got them their opportunities. And also, look, it's lonely. I mean, I'm the first in my family to go off to college, and when I had my first corporate job, I looked around and I was like, I don't like being the only here. I want other people like me in this space as well. And so I feel like our younger generations are definitely seeing that, and starting to definitely come back home more often. So let me ask you another question. So many Latino families balance culture, language, and expectations from the school system. How do you see schools as a whole navigating that? Because a lot of times people will say, well, what she does is only unique to her school. If you had to give somebody some advice, what would you say to them about how they can implement what you do at your school into their school?
Um, that's a good question. One, be authentic. That is where it starts because I've been to Ron Clark, amazing culture. And, whatever people's views might be when I go and when my staff trains there, because we do train at Ron Clark for our house system that we have in our school, that those school leaders that we meet there are authentic to themselves when they're connecting with our kids. And it's like, let me see a little bit of you and I'll show you a little bit of me. So any
Mhm.
school leader, or regardless of how you lead, because leadership is always going to be being influential. Be authentic to yourself, because it's always disappointing when people try to do this and they're not, and that's all I'll say about that. um, the other piece is, don't let the word charter fool you. What charter is a contract, and it's a contract for flexibility in exchange for performance. It's that simple. But
Mhm.
don't let the first thought be, oh, they're a charter school, they can do that. My first principalship was a traditional school. I founded the Washington Heights Academy with a group of families from Washington Heights, and that's where I was born and raised. So, it was a similar leadership style in a completely traditional environment. And it was, I'm not going to say it was the same, that was 18 years ago, but, still connecting with my community, still valuing and loving my community. Um,
Yeah.
so be authentic to yourself, but also listen. One of the things that people worry about in communities like ours is, oh, parents aren't going to show up. It's your job to keep showing up when they don't. And eventually they will come around. Um, it wasn't easy for me just because I'm bilingual, and I'm Latina. Our last school leader here, who was here for a year, spoke Spanish. And the parents were like, that's nice. When are we going to have a conversation? And they weren't a bad school leader. It's just, the engagement was different. And
Yeah.
so you have to keep showing up, and you have to have a genuine interest. That exchange and reciprocity and relationship of show me a piece of you and I'll show you a piece of me is really important. Like, I didn't know what
Okay.
pozole was or how to cook it,
Oh,
10
it's
years ago.
good. That's what it is.
It is good. Every time Canelo Alvarez fights, I'm like, I'm making pozole. We're winning. Um,
Uh-huh.
but I learned through my community. And now, it's like the same mom that brings me tamales, even though her student graduated like 2 years ago, still comes and brings it for the staff. And she's like, I put yours on the side, Miss Clark. And I'm like, I love you, Miss Colorado. I love this so much. I needed this today. But we
Mhm.
do that for each other. And I also have students that will come back on Hispanic heritage, and they're like, Miss Clark, are you making rice and corn again? Because I remember
Mhm.
from sixth grade, and I'm like, okay, I'll make it. And
Yeah.
but these exchanges don't always happen in person. I made reference to different like social platforms, sometimes as a Facebook message. Like, are you making
Mm.
rice and corn at Hispanic Heritage? Because I'm thinking of coming through with my little sister. She's in the school now. Or are you going to be at festival? Are you bringing the dogs? Because I'm going to come through. I'm home for college. It's stuff like that. Like Instagram messages. I get emails from my students now and again. So it's on different platforms. Sometimes it's quick conversations, and sometimes it's a message.
Crystal, you obviously have spoken a lot about your experience in dealing with immigration families. Your families themselves were immigrants. They came to this process legally, contrary to what people want to believe about immigrant families. I would assume that what you're seeing with ICE raids across this country feels very personal to you. And also, just curious, and I'm sure our listeners are curious, have you had any interactions or have your families had any interactions with ICE raids? And if so, how have you been able to handle that as a school leader?
One, the political climate right now isn't new to our community.
Hmm.
Let me tell you something about our people here in Path and immigrant communities across the nation. They've already been through hell to get here. They already risked their lives to get here. So thick skin is an understatement when it comes to all immigrants in this country who are a quintessential part of who we are.
Mhm.
That being said, yes, we're impacted by it. Um, yes, we have families that are being displaced, families that have paid taxes since they have gotten here, that have done everything, everything, everything right by the book. I have one family that their oldest daughter is in her last year, and she's done everything by the book. Once she gets to the end of her 4 years here, she will graduate with 3 high school credits going into high school, one for coordinated algebra, one for physical science, and one for music, which is her area of concentration. And her family was evicted this weekend.
I'm
No
sorry to hear.
excuse, no nothing. And it was related to an ICE raid. Um, and it wasn't this isn't a situation like the media likes to spin it like, well, if you don't pay your rent, you're going to get evicted. Ask Americans across the nation who's ever gotten behind on their rent 1 month.
Hmm.
And if that is cause to be displaced from your home that you've been in for over 10 years,
Yeah.
this close, and she has 2 siblings, and she pulled her siblings in through sibling rule in this school. So all 3 of these children have this amazing opportunity. We know she's going to get a scholarship. 50% of our students in her graduating class and the graduating classes before have. That's what
Mhm.
we're looking at. Story behind story behind story. That sounds like that. But I also
Mhm.
think it's important to make a distinction between local law enforcement agencies that are trying to connect and
Mhm.
ICE. because it's different.
Yeah.
And I had an officer come, and in our district we met with the police chief for our district, who's very good, but also gave us the sobering news that right now there isn't anything clear in place that can, you know, that doesn't prevent ICE agents from being able to come into your school. And that is
Mhm.
infuriating to me, because
Yeah.
I've, done all of this work along with our staff, who are all fiercely protective of our students and families, to make sure the kids feel safe enough to just learn while they're here.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
thankfully, nothing like that has happened. But I did have a police officer pull up um, just weeks after that announcement, unannounced. And I walked out of our building perimeter, which is secured by a fence. I don't take that for granted. That doesn't guarantee us safety. And we had a conversation, but I also let them know I'm not providing any permission for you to come past the fence. I'm coming outside to talk to you. Do you have paperwork? Do you have a warrant? Once I got past all of that, they just wanted to make sure they knew that the community was there for them. But
Oh.
no one was, it was a wonderful and positive conversation, but
Mhm.
everyone was like this, looking through the
Yeah.
blinds, like, what's going to
Like on
happen?
edge. Yes.
Because
Yeah.
we're all, yes, you know,
Yeah.
it's just hard. It's a hard
Yeah.
time, but it's not
Mhm.
difficult to navigate. We'll get through
Well,
it.
let me tell you, I've witnessed how fiercely protective you are of your students, and I'm so glad that you are. We need leaders and teachers like yourself and your staff to be that way. This has been an amazing conversation, Crystal, and I celebrate you, celebrate your schools, congratulate you on getting one of your babies graduating and another one coming in. That is amazing. Really great work that you're doing, and I'm excited to have an opportunity to share this and your work with our listeners. I think it's going to be really valuable, specifically for our immigrant and our Latino families, to see your level of leadership and to see that there is options out there, so that if they aren't in a charter school, if they don't have that option, there's still the fight in them to find it. And I just love all the stuff that you've shared. We need to wrap up, but we wrap up every session with asking our guests one question. What does choice words mean to you? Or if there was a choice set of words that you had to share with someone, what would they be? I feel like you've already shared it about being authentic, but I encourage you to, and I welcome you to think about something else. So, Crystal Clark, what is the choice words that you would like to share with people about education?
That choice is power, but it also comes with responsibility. And everybody deserves to have a choice.
That's dope. Thank you so much. So that is the wrap up for this session of Choice Words with our guest, Ms. Crystal Felix Clark. Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful time talking with you. This has been Choice Words, and we thank all of y'all for listening.